Thank you all. I see we are already at 35, and this is really good. That means there is a lot of interest in this, and there should be, because science is everything in the world, and the role of the media is quite important in this. And we're very glad that a number of you are able to join. I'm not able to see from which countries, but I'm sure you're representing a number of African countries, which is really very encouraging. So my name is Daniel Otunge. I work with Science Africa as a director and deputy executive director as well. So I would like to take this opportunity to invite Dr. Rose Oronje to please say a few words about yourself and also give your opening and welcoming remarks. Daktari.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. I'm excited to be joining us this afternoon. My name is Rose Oronje. As Daniel has said, I'm Director of Public Policy and Knowledge Translation. As well, I lead our office in Nairobi at AFIDEP. As noted, I'm excited to be part of this meeting this afternoon. And I'm looking forward to interacting with those of you who are with us online, but also those of you who are going to participate in this award that we are launching today. I will say just a few things about AFIDEP, just to ensure that many of us online are aware about the work of the Institute, which is the one behind the award, of course, in partnership with Science Africa and a few other partners in Burkina Faso and in Uganda and at the regional level. AFIDEP is a Pan-African Research and Policy Institute established in 2010. And the main reason for establishment was to bridge the gaps between research policy and practice, coming from the premise that there is a lot of information, data, and evidence in Africa that doesn't get to inform decisions in government at different levels in government, in parliament, to the level where it should. And yet, in a context where there is limited resources, which is the context for Africa, there is more reason why we should be making our decisions based on robust data and evidence. And so AFIDEP was formed to fill in that gap. Our vision is an Africa where evidence is used consistently to transform lives. And our mission is focused on enabling the use of evidence in the design and implementation of development policies and programs in Africa. To achieve that mission, we do two main things, or rather things that we categorize in two main areas. The first one is capacity development, and our capacity development is aligned with our mandate, which is supporting evidence use. And so it's focused on supporting and enabling use of evidence at within governments, within, of course, the media, within other development players. And so as part of the capacity development, we run various initiatives. One of them is training and mentorship for people who sit in government, who work in parliament, as well as those who work in civil society organizations and media. But beyond training and mentorship, we also look at institutional capacity, the systemic issues that we need to address to enable use of evidence as a culture in decision making. Apart from that, we also run quite a bit of advocacy around investments in research, investment in knowledge, because you know that if knowledge systems are not strengthened, then we can't really talk about a culture of evidence use in Africa, because we have to put in the money to generate the data that is needed and then ensure that that data is making its way into decision making. So we implement various activities under capacity development. We also, the second category of where we conduct a lot of work is research, what we call evidence generation and translation. We don't, as AFIDEP, do a lot of primary level research. Rather, we conduct analysis of existing data, do modeling with existing government data to inform decisions that or questions that governments are asking. And so a lot of our work will be around modeling and providing policy scenarios or different scenarios for different policy decisions or investments. And so we also do a lot of synthesis of existing research to answer specific questions, again, within government, within parliament. And much of the primary research that we do is mostly looks at policy environments to understand what are the reasons why we are not seeing any change despite policies and investments in that area. That is really about AFIDEP. We work in 5 areas. One of them is health and well-being. We do a lot of work under health and well-being. We also have done a lot of work on population dynamics and the role of population in development. We have a lot of work as well in governance and accountability. And we have now two program areas that are growing. They're fairly new. They've only been on for the last 2 years. One is education and skills development, and the other one is environment and climate change. We have a regional mandate as a research institute. We have offices in Kenya and Malawi, but operate at the continental level. And we've implemented work in more than 23 countries in the region, where our work has shaped particularly medium-term plans for several countries in the region, as far as placing population at the center of their development and investment plans. Our work has also contributed a lot to legal reforms, as well as issues around improving governance and decision-making, particularly for issues that are often neglected by governments. We've also implemented work that has led government to increase budget allocations. We know that a lot of times policies don't get implemented in many African countries because our governments are not putting in the money. And some areas often stand out where very little budgets or no budgets at all are being put in. And so our work has, mainly through provision of evidence and advocacy, has stimulated governments to increase or allocate budgets for neglected issues. Finally, we value our work with the media, and we have done quite a bit of work with media in the past years, and mostly because we see media as a critical player in the governance space. As noted earlier, governance is one of our thematic areas, and we see media as a critical player in governance. But of course, we see media also beyond governance as a player in the setting agenda for often neglected issues, and just providing the space, where the public and communities can engage and share their views. In the past, we have conducted trainings and sensitization for journalists around parliamentary reporting, around reporting issues around census and population. In a few countries, though we haven't done a lot of work at continental level, these are initiatives we've mostly implemented in Kenya and Malawi, where we have offices, but we've also, of course, done a bit of work through media networks. We've, in the past, run awards of excellence, mostly on parliamentary reporting in Malawi over the past couple of years, where we supported, we put this award up, but also worked with journalists to ensure there is better understanding of parliament, but also focused on engaging the public around the roles that parliament should be leading, the roles that MPs should be leading in their country, in Malawi. And so for that particular one, we did then put up an award, which a couple of journalists won. The first one was in 2020, and we're hoping that we'll be able to raise funds to keep running that award every 2 years. We also, of course, engage through sharing of information. We have had several breakfast sessions with media around different issues and different areas of work. And of course, linking journalists with researchers, which often becomes an important way of ensuring that there is sustained exchange between media and researchers to ensure that we're informing the stories that get into the press. I'll stop there. Back to you, Daniel. Looking forward, of course, to this award, and we hope that it will fit and drive the mandate of AFIDEP, but also the things that we are hoping as AFIDEP to change on the African continent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for taking us through what actually you do, which is really quite a lot. I didn't know that you do that much. On especially evidence-based policy is really, really very important, because what we see around is policies that sometimes are even unimplementable. And even when policies are implemented in Africa, especially in development areas, where they talk about health, agriculture, energy, in a number of areas, you find that not even enough data is gathered to be able to guide the same area going forward, in terms of how do you move forward from even what you've already done. How do you know that you're getting somewhere? But really, that is really key, the intervention you're having. The legal reforms, areas of governance when it comes to development issues and decision making, support that you're giving is really key. And the media is listening. I think they can partner. We are a very good partner in terms of championing this and making sure that whatever you do is seen, and what others are also doing in partnership with you and on their own are also seen, taken to the public, so that it can be the public domain for debate. We want to move to the next presentation, which is by Professor Richard Mkabana. who is the project director of the platform for dialogue and action on emerging health technologies. He will tell you more about himself because he's somebody who has really traversed a number of development areas within Africa and worked many other institutions, academies, and all that. That is the one to really tell the story much better, so that you can be able to see that this is not a platform that is a joke. So, Professor, please, most welcome. You have about 15 minutes to make your presentation, and maybe take one or two questions. And if there is any question that is on the chat, we would encourage you to also take time to reply to that. And that also goes to Dr. Oronje as well.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to be here today to talk about the platform for dialogue and action on emerging health technologies in Africa. I am the director of the platform. My name is Richard Mukabana. I work at the African Institute for Development Policy as a research and policy analyst. And I'm very excited to tell you some of the work we're doing on this particular platform. And I hope that this presentation will stimulate different participants from the media fraternity to be able to participate in this award. So the platform for dialogue and action on health technologies in Africa promotes and facilitates informed, objective, transparent, open, and balanced discussions on the development and use of emerging tools and technologies to address key health challenges in sub-Saharan Africa. Our vision is an Africa where cutting-edge technology is used to tackle health challenges. And our mission is to promote evidence-informed dialogue and action on health technologies in Africa. So our activities fall under 4 main categories. Number 1, we synthesize and promote use of evidence in tackling gaps in policy and regulatory frameworks relating to emerging health technologies. Number 2, we expand spaces for discussion on emerging health technologies in Africa to ensure that African voices inform decisions at various levels. Number 3, we nurture champions for emerging health technologies in Africa. And lastly, we strengthen capacity of African institutions to conduct advocacy on development and use of emerging health technologies in Africa. So the African Union, through its development agenda, has, through its high-level panel on emerging technologies, prioritized a number of technologies which it intends to upgrade so that we can stimulate economic development in Africa. Here is a list of those technologies. Some of them are still being discussed at the Union, and some of them have already passed through the discussions of the Union. So I would like to tell you about some of those technologies, and I'm hoping that this will stimulate your interest in this topic. So one of these technologies is use of gene drives for malaria control and elimination in Africa. So there is a technology that is currently under development, and in this technology, researchers are able to, in the laboratory, to produce mosquitoes, which if they mate with those that are in nature, the offsprings will die, the children will die. As that process continues, in a given environment, you wipe out all the mosquitoes. If you wipe out all malaria mosquitoes, then you have nothing to carry disease from one person to another, meaning that through this technology, you can be able to control malaria. So here is a map of Africa showing countries where this technology is being developed, and there are different things happening in the various countries. We have Uganda, Burkina Faso, we have Mali, we have Ghana, Cape Verde. Those countries are trying to work on a technology where when mosquitoes that have been genetically transformed met with the ones in nature, then the offsprings will die. So there's no productive mating there. Other groups working in Comoros, Cape Verde, Comoros, Sao Tome and Principe, and even Tanzania are trying to develop mosquitoes which are unable to harbor the malaria parasite. So at the end of it all, we have technology where mosquitoes live with us, but have no ability to grow the malaria parasite in themselves. So that's a map of Africa showing where the works are going. Work on genome editing is not yet going on in Africa. There might be a few labs doing it, but from the Auda NEPAD's perspective, there is a dialogue which is supposed to take place very soon in Nairobi from 31st October to 3rd November this year. So experts who are listening to me, you could Google this information so that you're part of that dialogue which will go on. Where does Africa want to go with this technology? But having said that, here are a few success stories of where this genome editing technology has gone thus far. They've been able to treat sickle cell disease. They've been able to treat visual impairment. And also they've been able to grow some meats on plants. So this is what has happened elsewhere, and Africa needs to think where it has to go. Another technology is the drones, the unmanned aerial vehicles. And this is really a technology where you carry something from one place to another. There are many African countries, including Rwanda, Malawi, a bit of Tanzania, Ghana, and others, where this technology is ongoing for various purposes. And in this slide, I show you some success stories about the use of drones in different setups around the world. So in one case there on the extreme left, this technology has been used to deliver vaccines to people who are very needy in otherwise far to reach areas where it would not have been possible to vaccinate kids. It's also been used elsewhere to transport organs. So for transplant, and that has worked successfully in a very short period of time that was possible. In some other work in Africa, in Zanzibar, we've been able to use drones to apply larvicides in rice paddies to control mosquitoes, and that worked really effectively with the drone. And we saw that the speed that the drone used here is far much less compared to if human beings had to walk and apply the larvicides themselves. We do have another application for this among emerging technologies, and this is the use of microgrids. Microgrids is some kind of system where you make electricity off the main grid. And there are many things you can do with that electricity. In the example that I show here, that power is being used to run a mosquito trap, if you look on the left on this slide. And of course, there's a point that you can use to charge your phone. Of course, you can have lighting there to read your newspaper, your books if you're in school. But microgrids normally are meant for a slightly larger area than just a single house. And if policies can be put in place to upgrade the use of microgrids, then this would be very good for Africa. Probably if people can be privately licensed to produce electricity and have some freedom to distribute it, that would be very great for the continent. We do have another technology called artificial intelligence. This one is pending dialogue at the Africa Union level, but it's also having a lot of promise to develop Africa. There are really many things under this technology, so I'll be hoping that people listening to me and want to participate in the award can find out more about this technology. I haven't seen anything on the AU website up to now, but there are many other things online about the technology. So there are many issues which undermine development and testing of emerging health technologies in Africa. And that is partly why this forum is here. We want people in the media to be able to demystify issues around emerging technologies. So for example, right now there's very limited knowledge among key stakeholders and the public. In Kenya, for example, there is this thing we call public participation. If you have made some kind of legislation, sometimes it's required that you go through public participation, and it's good if the people you're talking to revert to you from an informed perspective. So that is an issue which we think that the media might be useful in. Another limitation is Africans generally don't involve or participate in technology development. So we are largely consumers, and we need to get to a level whereby we can participate in developing our own technology, because that way we can customize the technology for use in the continent. There is also opposition to the development and use of some of these technologies. I've talked about the gene drive technology, so that is genetic engineering. Many countries in Africa don't have requisite legislation for even developing some of those technologies, leave alone using those technologies. It's important that policymakers, the general public, and every other stakeholder comes to know everything or maybe enough about these technologies, so that when they sit down to discuss them, then they objectively determine if some of these technologies have to be adopted or promoted for use in the individual countries on the continent. And lastly, there is limited priority and investments in these technologies. Actually, if you look through Africa, the investment in health is rather small. How about in these technologies? So we don't want to be left behind as Africans. It's a high time that we become part of the rest of the world in being at the cutting edge of technology for use in health. So that is all in this presentation. Thank you very much, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Prof, for taking your time to explain to us these very intricate things that you're doing. This is really good. And for my colleagues in the media, I think this presentation tells you the areas that the panelists or the judges will be looking at, and the areas that you really need to focus on if you have not written anything in any of the areas that Prof has talked about, whether it's gene drive or those many others that he has mentioned. And Prof, I hope this presentation will be available on your portal so that the journalists can be able to have a review of it and to guide them as they go about reporting in this area.
Yes, it will be available.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to go now to the crux of the matter and invite Dr. Rosolonji again to now talk to us about the Emerging Health Technologies Media Award and what it is all about, so that we are all in the same page in terms of this. Daktari, back to you.
Thanks, Daniel. I've actually requested Pauline to make the presentation on my behalf. So Pauline, please take it away. Thank you.
Okay, Pauline.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you, Rose. And thank you for the other speakers that have made the presentation. Thank you, Prof. I think that has been a good background to now talk about the media awards. And Rose talked about the importance of the media in terms of the work that we do and in research dissemination and even just spreading that information and the findings. And so the Media Award of Excellence is one of the ways that we involve and engage the media in disseminating information and in this case on emerging health technologies. And considering that these are new technologies, they're still emerging, some are being developed, others are being piloted as we had. And so there's really important role that the media plays in terms of educating the masses, and not only that, but even providing facts that inform decisions that is being made, both at grassroots level and also at policy and decision-making level. So I'll go to the award and talk about the award in brief, that it's part of the health tech platform. And it's an annual recognition of journalists to just contribute to increasing awareness and promoting critical discussion on emerging health technologies. As you heard when the platform was being introduced, that we provide a platform that all stakeholders can come together and have open and balanced discussion. And so for the media award is just increase that awareness and promote these discussions on emerging health technologies. And the purpose is to enhance the quality and the quantity of media stories that are being produced on the development and testing of emerging health technologies in Africa. And just to note that it's needed to promote and enable African-led, informed and balanced discourse on emerging health technologies. So our technologies of focus, if you can remember the last presentation from Prof. Mukabana, he outlined a number of technologies, and within those technologies, there are those that we've prioritized as a platform, and these include gene drives for malaria control and elimination, gene editing, drones in healthcare provision, artificial intelligence, and microgrids in healthcare provision. These are the technologies that as a platform we've prioritized. Yes, they've been prioritized by the African Union, but also as a platform, these are what we've prioritized. So our media award will revolve around these technologies. So on these technologies, there are issues that are undermining the development and their testing in Africa. And this is the African context. The most outstanding issue is the lack of legal and regulatory frameworks to guide the development and testing of these technologies. So where other technologies, where other regulations exist, you realize they're not sufficient to guide emerging health technologies. For example, a number of countries have biotechnology regulations, but you realize that these regulations are not sufficient to cater for gene drive technologies or genome editing. And the same with drones, the same with other technologies. Yes, there are regulations, but the applicability in terms of healthcare has not been defined and it's not specific. So yeah, so lacking legal and regulatory frameworks is one of the issues. There's limited capacity and infrastructure, both technical and even human resource. Inadequate investment by African government in research and innovation. Most of African government actually have not have inadequate allocation in research and innovation, and especially in healthcare. Limited involvement of African communities in emerging health technologies. We mentioned there are new technologies. These are novel, very novel technologies. So there's limited involvement of African communities, and that's why this award is important, because the role of the media in educating even communities deep within rural communities, urban communities. So it's the word that we are envisioning that it will increase awareness among African communities, and that they will also give their voice on the development and testing on emerging health technologies. There's also low levels of awareness among many Africans, which is also tied to the limited involvement of African communities in emerging health technologies. And then there's also opposition to some of these emerging health technologies. And when it comes to the opposition of emerging health technologies and their development, what we talk about is evidence, and evidence is big for us. So when a technology is being opposed, where is the evidence behind it? And even as we are talking about media award on this, evidence is really key to us. So as we are inviting journalists to send in their entries, we also expect that these entries will be based on evidence, so they'll be evidence informed. So areas interest for media coverage. One is to create awareness and help the public understand the complex emerging health technologies. I think on the chart, there's a survey that, it's just a very short survey that talks about, just gauging our knowledge on emerging health technologies. And you realize most of us were not aware of emerging health technologies. And even if we were aware, a number of us who are not, didn't know that they are being developed or tested in Africa. So one of the interest areas for the media is to just create this awareness, to just let the public know and understand the complexity around emerging health technology, and even know that they're there. And also to raise the public's appreciation of the potential of individual emerging health technology in reducing disease burden. So focusing on what is the potential of drones in reducing disease burden in Africa. What is the potential of gene drive technology for malaria elimination? What is the potential of microgrids in healthcare? So these are the areas that are of interest to the media, and then to also facilitate public discourse on the needed regulatory reforms to facilitate the development and testing and the deployment of these emerging health technologies. So yes, it's good to raise appreciation, it's good to create awareness, but at the end of the day, what you're working towards is change in regulatory, so that we can have regulatory reforms and have the right frameworks or the right policies that guide the development of this technology. So much as we are working towards creating awareness on these technologies and to raise appreciation, also towards having the needed regulatory reforms so that these technologies are able to even be tested to see whether they're going to work or whether they are not going to work. So the other issue of interest is to create awareness about ongoing efforts to develop and test, pilot, and deploy these emerging technology in your individual countries. And I think this will raise up the appreciation on just knowing what is going on and what are the efforts that are being developed. And I think once you start working on this as the media, once you start working on this, you'll realize that it's really very interesting to know that there's a lot of ongoing efforts to address the disease burden just in our local environments, yet it has not been in the public, yet a lot of people don't know about that. So the other issue of interest is—
Your time is almost up.
Okay, all right, I'll just be brief. Share the views of communities on emerging health technologies that are being developed or tested. So there are different categories of the awards, and I'll be fast, please forgive me. So there's the grand prize, and we'll also share this PowerPoint for just reference. So there's the grand prize. It recognizes the best emerging health technology feature across all technologies. Print category, focusing on just print, newspaper, magazine, journal. Radio category, of course, the radio, television category, and online category. And then eligibility for this award. You have to be an African journalist and working in Africa, because we are talking about African context. It's open to individual journalists and not media institutional organizations. And the period of publication is, we are taking entries from October 2021 to 31st October 2022, sorry for that. And it has to be only in English and French. Submissions have to be in English and French. So the selection criteria, an independent judging committee will select, will work guided by clearly outlined criteria. So the stories need to be well researched. As I mentioned, it has to be evidence informed, have to be original, accurate, and clear. And it has to bring value in fostering better public understanding on emerging health technologies. And it should also be easy to understand by the public, because at the end of the day, we are trying to create awareness on the public. On the prizes, the grand prize is $5,000 US dollars for the grand prize. Print category is 2,500, with the runners up at 1,000 US dollars. Radio category, that's 2,500, and same for the other category. It's only the grand prize that has a different amount, that's $5,000. As I mentioned, we'll share this slide. So the timeline for the award is from, so the August 31st, which is today, that is when we are launching this award. from October 31st. So from today, we are opening the call for entries. So we are opening submissions. We'll start getting submission, and then from October 31st, we'll have it's the deadline for submission. November 2022, we'll be reviewing the submission and selecting winners, and then December we announce the award and we have the award ceremony. Is that the end of my presentation? Just to mention that we have the call for entries document, and we'll share that in the chat. And thank you for listening. Thank you, Daniel. Sorry for taking too much time.
Thank you. And this was the most important part of it, because that's what you want to do. So thank you, Pauline. I think there's only one thing I wanted you to clarify. When you say entries based on evidence, does it mean the story should be story that can be authenticated, or what did you mean by that? And then also the period within which the story must have been published also. Maybe you can clarify that even as you share the link very quickly.
Okay, I'll talk about the story. Sorry, I'll talk about the evidence informed stories, and then I'll let my colleague Adodo talk about the period, the entries period. So when I talk about the stories that are based on evidence, I mean, these are emerging health technologies, and a lot of research is out there. Yeah, and so what we will not be accepting is stories out of fiction. You realize stories that are out of fiction, but stories that are backed up by facts. I think that's the correct word, backed up by facts. So if you're talking about gene drives, what are the facts behind gene drives? What are the facts behind the stories that you've presented? If you're talking about drones the same way, what are the facts behind it? So yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Very quickly, Adodo.
Thank you, Daniel. We're accepting submissions for 2 months till October. However, we're looking for stories that have been published within the previous year. So from last year, October to this year, October. Does that clarify your question?
Okay. October 21st, 2021 and to October 2022. That's a period of about 11 months, 13 months or so. Okay, so thank you very much once again. Thank you, Pauline, for that. I want to invite Esther. Just say 1 or 2 words about yourself, and then you go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you very much, everyone. My name is Esther Nakazi, the founder of the Health Journalists Network. I'm a science journalist, and I also write about technology. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to be at this extraordinary launch of the Emerging Health Technologies Media Award. I'm honored to be talking, and I hope everybody has listened in to Pauline and to Prof, and you're ready to put in your awards, your articles, sorry. Today, as has been said, I have the honor of talking about the media and how we report about emerging health technologies. I've been reporting science and technology for a long, long time, about 2 decades, and I believe that Africa's ability to fight disease in the future very much depends on health technologies and how we, the media, can actually report about them. I must say that it is important, and at this moment in time where we have many, many disease outbreaks coming out, we have many, many pandemics, epidemics that we are seeing all over the world, that Africa has a chance to adopt these technologies. And one of the advantages we have as Africa is we can leapfrog the technologies. We can just go into the technologies without going through the, circles. You are well aware that in terms of telecom, we did get into the mobile phone and skipped some steps into getting into the technology. So I think it can happen even for the emerging health technologies, and we can do it. So rather than thinking about a step-by-step approach, we can jump directly to them. We can use mRNA to develop vaccines. We can use gene drives for controlling malaria, like Professor highlighted. We can use AL, artificial intelligence, like Professor again talked about, and all this can work to our advantage as Africa. This will not only bring benefits to the communities, to the patients, but to the healthcare providers as well, but also results in elimination of diseases like malaria, present more rapid diagnostics and treatments, whether district hospitals, whether in hospitals, and it will translate into better outcomes and more sustainable, less intensive demand on our healthcare systems. These health technologies that have been mentioned by Professor and Pauline and everybody are no longer futuristic. They are not in the future. They are here. We can see them. And I can tell you that as a journalist, I have covered the gene drive. Uganda is one of the countries that is doing it. And I'll tell you that immediately after a conference in Lausanne, I happened to understand that they are starting it here in UVRI, and I live near Entebbe. So one afternoon, I had made an appointment with one of the researchers there. I went in, we had a long discussion. He told me what is happening. He showed me the insect tree. He explained everything that was to happen about the mosquitoes coming in and the gene drive technology coming in under Target Malaria, under the project called Target Malaria. So I embarked on writing the story. I didn't write the story immediately after I talked to the researcher. I sort of wanted to understand what is going on, because for me, it was also very complex. Even if I have all this experience, it was something that I was learning, and it's something that I keep learning. I keep learning about these new things that I imagine. So when we had the long discussion for the day, it almost took maybe 5 hours. We were having a back and forth. He took me to the lab. I looked at the insect tree. He told me this. And then I pitched my story to an editor in BMJ, British Medical Journal, which is a good scientific journal and upmarket. And the editor, of course, agreed and said, okay, you can write the story. And there I then began looking for the sources. I had to speak to people in Burkina. I had to speak to people in Ghana. I had to speak to many people. And one of the challenges I think I faced was, as Pauline has said, the regulatory frameworks in different countries is a little bit murky, and people don't understand exactly where the plants and the insects are going to do. And so it becomes difficult even for you as a journalist if they are not well versed with some of those things. What exactly are you going to write? But anyway, eventually I got people from Nairobi, and they knew a lot about the project. And the Target Malaria people here in Uganda also knew a lot. And in Burkina, they had moved a lot of steps forward. So I published the article, and I was very happy about it. It took a back and forth, but it was also a very good learning process for me, because my editor was patient with me. She would probe me, and I would go back, and I would call the researcher in Burkina, and he would give me details. So it takes a little bit of patience to go around these things of, writing about new stuff, especially health emerging technologies, but it is possible and it can be done. Just this month, again, I went to UVR for a totally different meeting, and I met the researcher who is in charge of the project again, and he gave me an update, and he told me, this is what is happening. We are going to bring in the mosquitoes soon. We are talking to the community. We are engaging them. And for me, it works out like every time I have this piece of information, I put it in the back of my head and I say, okay, this is fine. I will work with it, and I will use it in my next writing, and that is very helpful. So I'm telling you this story just to let you know that if you have sustained interest, if you're looking at these topics that Pauline has shared, put it in the back of your mind, and every time you're seeing this information around, when you bump into somebody, talk to them, ask them these questions, and then when you're ready to write, you have all this information around you. So it is not a one-time thing. It takes a bit of time, and there are challenges. There's lack of awareness and knowledge and value recognition within communities. There's limited data. Some researchers and scientists do not adequately involve communities. If you hear the Burkina story, there were some issues, and you know, communication is a little bit of a problem for some of the institutions that are doing the technologies. But it is our duty as media to raise awareness of the technologies, create community awareness, and let people know. I mean, if they're bringing the mosquitoes here in Entebbe, the community should know what is going on, what is going to happen, so that they embrace the project and they are part of it. But it takes us as the media to write about them, to create the awareness, to share information, and for people to know that this is happening, so that we don't create fear and we report authoritatively and with evidence, like Pauline has said. I think that is it from me. But simply put, we can help achieve Africa's shared priorities for emerging technologies in health, whether they are deploying these technologies, furthering research about them, expanding knowledge and access about them. And we cannot do that if we don't work together as scientists, as media people, as communities, as everybody joining hands, and we all come together and give out this information for the good of our continent. Thank you, Daniel.
Great. Thank you very much, Esther. Thank you for sharing your experience, because that's the best way to help others also to learn. I'm glad that you've been doing this. So I hope you'll be able to enter your story as well if the rules applicable allows. Okay, so Victor, you had something to ask?
My question is that I heard that they're talking about that entries will be in English or French. So what about those people for Kiswahili? What are we going to do?
Yes, valid question. Pauline, go ahead.
Yes, I can respond to that. We will accept translations if you are just provided that you know what the original language is. So you can do a story in Kiswahili and then we'll accept translation. Because I know there are a number of journalists who are working in local setup and might do their documentaries in their local language. Thank you.
So that goes for any other language?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for clarifying that. I think we are already past the hour, so I would ask Mr. Tula to both do the two together. Speak briefly about your advice to the participants on science, journalism, and its role in Africa, maybe in less than 5 minutes, and then also officially launch this so that the colleague, all of us, the journalists, we can start now making our submissions or sending our submissions. Mr. Tula.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I think Nakazi has really made a wonderful presentation, which I think makes my work very easy. And all I can tell you is that as a good science journalist, make sure that your story is relevant to the region. And it is not a question of terminologies. It is a question of, will it have impact on the local population? Will it add value to the work scientists are doing? Will it have an impact on policymakers? Those three. Because one of the things which journalists can do for this continent is to get Africans to fund science. If you can use your communication skills, not abuse them, not tell them blah, blah, then our scientists will find more time to do what they're supposed to do. The continent had promised long time ago, just about every country, to allocate 1% of their GDP or what for research and development. So far, very few have reached that. Kenya even went ahead and made it 2%. Now I'm talking as a journalist that it is one thing to do stories about this, and then after a year or two, it is not there because donors didn't bring money. And the scientist maybe flies abroad or goes back somewhere not doing what we had started. So as you do your story, remember those elements of pushing the continent to fund science. And funding science is not for conferences alone. And we also encourage scientists that journalists are the people's watchdog. They are not doing scientists a favor. They are trying to help the public in this part of the world with so many problems which should not be there. So there are many angles to the gene drive story. There's the science of it, which you're not a scientist, you can make one or two to make your communication effective. And I really like the idea of doing story in local languages. That's really a major step forward, because proximity matters a lot. When people can get something explained in their story in their language, chances of them taking action is very high, instead of if it is put in Queen's English or something like that, which I think the world has changed. Otherwise, I can only encourage you. You people are lucky. At the press of a button, you can be online. Just know who is who about gene drive, whether Americans have used the same technology somewhere in their, part of the world, Burkina Faso. It is not like our days when maybe you need to go to a medical school library. So get in touch with Nakazi, get in touch with us, get in touch with our friends. And I don't have much to say. I assume you're journalists and you are experienced as journalists. But in between, if you are free to talk with us, we are always available. If you have any issues you want to do or any issues you want to have. But there are many angles to your story. There are many angles to this era of these emerging health technologies. They are already there. And there are many angles to them. Mr. Tungi, I think I'll stop there. I just wanted to encourage them and remind them that you have an important duty to this continent, because it is science which is the missing link. You saw COVID, every country was trying to hold the West, let's be honest about it, were holding it, that their population first. And it took WHO and World Bank and others and philanthropists to plead for Africans. We have money, it's not a question of no money. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think now you can officially launch.
Oh, okay.
In your own words.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, science journalists, this is an opportunity which I would say nowadays was very rare. This is an opportunity for you to help the continent, but also to make your work easy. And I strongly encourage you to tell your friends and even you to do as many stories that are credible. Don't just do one story, win an award, and wait for the next one. Otherwise, I can only tell you that all of you should be ready to do a story on emerging health technologies. And let me become a politician. I declare it open.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tula. You have heard it is now. Thank you again, Mr. Tula, for the wise words and also for officially launching this. Colleagues, you have heard is now open, like Pauline told you, Tula has told you, and the background information is available. Affidef has enough information that you can go on as a starting place when you're looking for stories. And of course, the story angles have also been given. But if you've been publishing that area, like I know people in Rwanda and have been writing a lot in this, especially the drones and all those things, you can start looking at the stories that you have and see which ones you want to submit. Because me, I saw the awards and I said, am I also allowed to actually also submit my own story? But that I will talk to Pauline on the sides if she agrees. Thank you very much. I think we are coming to close. Just one more. As usual, when you give us your time like this, we would like to also ask the institution to say a word of thank you and make some closing remarks. And that is none other than Professor Richard Mkabana. Professor, if you're still with us, please go ahead and make a few remarks and close this for us.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really excited at this opportunity of inviting people from the media to help the platform of the health tech platform to further its course and its objectives. I have heard about Nakazi Esther for, in many different fora. I've heard about her for a very long time, and it's very interesting that today I could see and hear from her. She talked about the stories of this gene drive as if she works for target malaria. All she said was true, having been in this environment. I am really happy to, to encourage everyone who's here to put up a little story. You have seen the technologies of focus, and stories will be largely in those areas only. And I would be very happy if we can all be very participative. We will have an online platform where information can be posted. Some of the PowerPoints and everything else will appear in that area, so you can visit that area to get information. Otherwise, I'm really humbled by this opportunity, and I hope that you either have a story that you want to send it in for the competition, or maybe this discussion within the hour has stimulated your thinking, and you're already trying to put a story in your head that you'll make within the period of the submission. So yeah, so thank you very much. And it's been very nice seeing all of you within this meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Prof. I think this has been really very good. So we look forward to receiving your entries so that we can get the winners. Okay, thank you everybody, and bye-bye.